We have a couple of stories we want to take a closer look at. They both kind of have a theme around security, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of see where we're at in that space. And the first one that we're starting off with is actually something you may not even be aware of, because attackers are starting to target critical infrastructure that runs industrial and manufacturing facilities. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, wait a minute, that doesn't really sound like a new thing, right? Well, you're right, except the fact that it's getting faster and there's a lot more sophistication involved. Security firm Dragos has noted in a recent post that there has been a significant increase in the number of people using password cracking tools on industrial equipment like programmable logic controllers. They're called PLCs. Um, this genius really comes into play because they're not cracking these PLC passwords in order to do things like wrecking these giant milling machines or doing other stuff like that. No, they're just turning them into nodes in a giant botnet. You know, that thing that we do sometimes where we amplify a whole bunch of extra stuff. Yeah. If you think it's hard to clean malware off of a PC that you can just shut down and reboot it 4 or 5 times until you make sure that you got everything cleaned out, imagine how hard it is to do that to a machine that has to run 20 hours a day and never goes down and takes 8 or 9 or 10 or 12 minutes to reboot every time you do it. Oh, and it doesn't have a screen either. That can be rather difficult. Dragos has noted that while they only tested one kind of PLC in this little art blog post that they wrote, they took a sample of some other ones that were from different manufacturers, and they all showed signs of having malware already. Stephen, do you think it could cause problems for our supply chain if our industrial and manufacturing machines are suddenly nodes in a giant botnet?
Yes. Next story? Oh, I'm kidding. Um, yeah, this is some crazy stuff. Effectively, just kind of for background here, PLCs are not servers that are used for industrial automation. These are more like industrial IoT. Essentially, they're small, lightweight systems that are designed to run all sorts of industrial applications, from robots to heck, lighting and air conditioning and power. These things are so important. Effectively, the modern factory is a wall of PLCs that are each controlling a thing that does a thing. As you can imagine, efficiency of a modern factory is pretty high because, frankly, those little things that do a thing are really good at doing that one thing. But if you're asking them to do something else, like, I don't know, send out a DDoS attack on some website over HTTP, they might not move that robot arm the right way, or they might not move it quickly enough, and that could cause all sorts of issues. As you can imagine, too, if they can be used in a DDoS, even if it's not interfering with regular activities, think about what could be done to turn these things off or to mess things up. I mean, we've already seen PLC attacks on Iran and their nuclear capability. I mean, imagine doing the same thing on, I don't know, General Motors or heck, Tesla. They've all got tons and tons of these things, and you could basically take down a whole factory by turning that DDoS on itself. This is just bad, bad, bad. But it's predictable, isn't it? Because frankly, what you've got here is you've got a system that has very little maintenance, very low skilled, and I say that from an IT perspective. These people are incredibly skilled at programming PLCs, but they're not highly skilled in terms of cybersecurity, like that kind of skills. Operators, and in fact, one of the roots of this attack came down to the fact that people were basically quitting one factory and walking away, and nobody wrote down the passcode. And so somebody had to hack it to get into the passcode. And then they said, oh, wait, if it's that easy to hack it to get the passcode for recovery purposes, oh man, what else could I do with this? Anyway, yeah, this is bad, 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 Tom.
And I think it's interesting that you bring up the Iranian PLC centrifuge issue with Stuxnet, because that was, well, how do I put this gently? That was subtle. Like that was a very specially crafted piece of malware that was designed to do something extremely insidious that made it very difficult to trace back to A, what was causing the problem, and B, how to fix it. That was the James Bond Aikido judo method of making you beat yourself. These guys are a little bit more like Henry Hill from Goodfellas. They're just going to punch you in the mouth, and that's kind of what I'm worried about. Is when you look at the fact that they don't care if they're attacking PLCs. Like ultimately what they're doing is they're basically doing like John the Ripper attacks against whatever's in your organization. And if it happens to pop a PC or I don't know, like an access point or a PLC, almost so much the better. Okay, my little framework says that I can deploy this package to that thing, and it gives me an extra, I don't know, 50 megabits per second on my DDoS capabilities. Woohoo! Now I have the biggest botnet in the world, and I can, wipe out people who are, I don't know, beating me at Fortnite or whatever, because that's honestly what a lot of these things turn into. Or they're renting it out to people. But where the problem comes into play is when these people get burned. And we've seen this time and time again when the proprietors of these rentable botnets start getting caught, they burn it to the ground. And that's where the real problem comes into play. Because if I hit the kill switch and it just suddenly decides to stop everything that I'm doing, you wipe a PC that is currently, like, oh, hey, we weren't smart and we left the records on the PC instead of keeping them in Google Cloud or something like that. I can go get a backup, right? That's the hope. I was time machining my data. When you wipe a PLC, unless you have somebody there that can reprogram that thing on the fly, or you are under warranty or something like that, it's gone. It's wiped out. And that machine is losing money every minute it's not doing what it's designed to do. That's a problem for me. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people are trying to solve by not necessarily trying to make these devices industrial IoT enabled themselves, but I know like companies like Cisco are actually front ending them with like these small form factor switches that are more IT friendly for the people who manage the IT. And so what that means is that you have a consistent interface that's also a lot harder to hack because it doesn't have that specialized, like the article that Dragos put up, like the passcode to this PLC was just like a 7-digit number. Well, John the Ripper can probably find the digits for that in like a day at worst, if it has like a rate limiter or something like that. So by putting, say, like a Cisco Industrial IoT router in front of it, you're hitting a wall before you ever get to the device, and the device doesn't know any better. So I think that's probably going to be a better solution going forward, because those are more manageable devices than these tiny little things that are so hard to program that they require super specialized knowledge that's non-IT.